the cab ride was, pretty religiously storyboarded, fairly specific. We went through just to lay out the things that we needed to see. We needed to see the bridge off in the distance with the lights on, and we knew those kinds of things just so you would know you're getting closer and closer and closer, so that the water didn't come as a total surprise. But it's pretty straightforward. This stuff's pretty. Stunts in movies and action sequences are. You kind of send out for that stuff like pizza. It's kind of like, I'll have a number 12.
Rumbles its way, takes off, drives into the city, then swerves around the corner, wider coverage, closer coverage. Michael Douglas is trying to get out. Car drives through. Driver leaps out, smiling, and then rolls out onto the street. Professional little stunt roll. They smash through a fence, whip hand to Michael Douglas, and then rumbling towards the thing. These are some of the shots I'm doing now, just adding some coverage with the car careening towards the end of the pier. Towards the water, yeah. I run the boards through a laser copier to give it this sort of bluish tint, make it look a bit more cinematic. And he braces himself as the fare hits $10, clicks himself in. Then he holds on, shooting through the glass, and then boom, right over the pier, into the water. And then the water starts to go in, and then the taxi sinks. And he has to find his way out. I think he uses a crank and exits up into the bay. And that's the taxi sequence.
Oh, this is a shot I always wanted to do that we weren't able to. The kind of just going through the forest of those high tension towers and looking straight down, so it was just completely just like watching a bug, crawl up the side of a sand dune or something. This is one of those frustrating things about storyboards versus the reality of a location, because, oftentimes storyboard artists will shoot, this, or will draw things that you can't shoot. I mean, you'll look at it and you'll go, I love the way that horizon line looks. It's all sort of compressed on a 10,000 millimeter lens, and then the car looks great because it's shot at like 27 millimeter lens, and the guy's face looks great because it's like a portrait lens, like a 75 millimeter. But it's oftentimes you run into that, like going, why can't we make it look like the storyboard? Because there's all kinds of John Doe here. These are nice boards. Screen direction's all wrong, but they show you kind of what we had in mind. I could sort of come from that world of, pre-planning. And I mean, there's certain things that, I was able to say, yeah, I want to see this. I want to see past them looking at the van, and I want to see the angle of, these sort of angles of the gun. But I do think that there's probably more Sturm and Drang with these storyboards, in terms of the angles than what I would be comfortable with. It just makes it too dramatic. I sort of use storyboards to remind me of key things that I want to see. This sequence, I believe, was kind of talked through once, and Jacques went off and did a version of the scene, and then I think we never really got to refine it after. I mean, I don't really religiously go, okay, this is exactly what we're shooting. You use them as to give everybody an idea of what's going to be going on. But on a movie like this, where you can put the camera anywhere you want in a field. It's not like we're ever gonna, be in danger of putting the crane up high enough to be in a high tension line. So you just kind of get ideas of what you want to do. I actually believe that those storyboards were done sort of, at the time, if I can recall, we may have actually done those to kind of disprove the notion that it could be ended to back off the idea of Somerset shooting him. It may have been proof of concept that this wasn't going to work. But I honestly don't remember. The issue was always a simple one. The studio felt that Doe needed to be thwarted in some way. If he was going to take this guy's wife and kill her, and thereby kill the unborn child within her, that he needed to not get the thrill of being killed by the person that he wanted to be killed by. Which is a compelling argument, but I think you're splitting hairs at that point. And I think that was Brad's point always, was like, I don't think I would even let him get those words out. I'd have unloaded this gun. And ultimately that argument is emotionally true. It's like, in a weird way, the kind of double-edged sword of the movie is that you give the vengeance-crazed audience their bloodlust and what they come to movies for, but at the same time, you spelled it out for them for the 3 minutes before the trigger gets pulled, that this is the circumstances under which this choice is being made, and there's really no kind of satisfying. There aren't enough bullets. There isn't enough. You can't do enough damage to him for it ever to be even. And I think that that was the thing Andy was always kind of talking about in our story meetings, was wait, violence begets violence begets violence, and you can't that's what all kind of great moral drama, that's Romeo and Juliet. That's like, a mistake is made, or in a moment of passion somebody does something that they feel is right, or that they feel is just, but that the repercussions of that are invariably unjust, and they can't be tied up in a neat bow. Everybody kind of loses. And so that's the thing that he had constructed, and he'd constructed it so well that, whether Morgan had shot him, or whether Mills had turned the gun on himself, or whatever was going to happen at the end, it was just never going to tie itself up in a neat bow. So, in the end, I have to agree with the most direct, dramatic wave is what's coming from Mills. He's lost too much. He's got nothing left to lose. And even though it's not as clever, I think it's dramatically satisfying and works hand in glove with the notion of what it was supposed to be from the beginning, which is you step in evil and you have evil on you.